Hi there, YouTube. This is Tim Pote with Software Story, once again answering a question from experienced devs, this time from Professional Pair 99. How do you turn off work mode? Question for all experienced software engineers here, whether you're in office or remote. I'm mid-level at a FANG role, posted on here a couple of times about gaining work-life balance problems. I was curious how everyone here practices compartmentalizing their work life, home life, and relationships in this industry, especially during times when deadlines are due and whatnot. I struggle to turn off my work worries and wondering if I should simply just care less. Good luck. Was there a period like this sometime in your career as well? Layoff/PIP news and discussion probably doesn't help in this current market. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing I can do about the economic market. Professional Pair 99. It's one of those things that if you need to be looking around, and you should be reading the room to see if you need to be looking around. If you need to be looking around, take some action. Start to do some networking, reach out. But it doesn't seem like that's your problem. If you've reached out here a couple of times and you're hearing people say, "Oh, we compartmentalize, compartmentalize, compartmentalize," it sounds like you're having trouble with this notion that you should compartmentalize your work and life and home life and your relationships and treat them all separately. Yeah, the reason I think you're having trouble with that is I don't think anybody does it particularly well, or at least I don't. Maybe some people think of it like this and it's helpful for them, but I don't think of it like that. Life is not a compartmentalized thing. You are not a compartmentalizable thing. You're just you're a whole person, and the whole person is either doing some work, or you're doing some stuff at home, or you're building relationship with your kids, or whatever, right? But it's your whole person doing a thing. You don't compartmentalize. And this is true because if you have ever had like an argument or a disagreement with somebody close to you, and then you go and try and do work and you haven't resolved that disagreement, how much work do you get done? Not a lot, right? And vice versa. If you're frustrated at work, if you're not getting everything that you feel like you need to be doing at work, and you come home and you're sitting down to eat, how kind are you going to be to the people around you? Like medium at best, right? You're going to be trying to keep your emotions to yourself. Really what you want is to be whole and present at all times. And you need to find a way not to balance your time spent at work and your time spent at home. Rather, you need to balance the relationships that you have, right? So your relationship with your wife needs to perceive that as being in balance, or your husband needs to perceive it as being in balance. The same with your boss. Your boss needs to perceive that you are spending an appropriate amount of time, or you're making an appropriate amount of progress, is probably what they're most interested in, or more likely to be interested in anyways. So part of it for me is to stop thinking of it as a compartmentalizable problem and start to treat it as like a holistic thing. And here's part of the reason why. Software is about thinking. Thinking is fundamentally an emotional process. This is something I don't see a lot of people talking about, but thinking is very much about that feeling of curiosity, that feeling of not knowing where this problem is gonna go next, not knowing what solution you need to take, what roadblock you're gonna bump into. Thinking is about all those emotions coming together to drive you toward the goal, whatever the goal happens to be. And the fact that your emotions are the driver of the thing means that you can't control it in a way that you can your actions. So if you're working a line job and you're clocking in and clocking out, and wherever you left off is where you're going to pick up the next day, or where the next shift picks up, or whatever, that's not, your emotions aren't driving that. It's your need to make money that's driving that. But emotions don't work like that. Emotions are this holistic thing that weave in and out of our consciousness that we don't fully control. So the best thing that you need to be doing is maintaining good relationships with the people around you, and seeking to always improve your relationships with people around you, because that's what's going to unlock the creativity for work, right? These things are not this thing that you can split up and treat separately. They are codependent. You need your work relationships and your work progress to be going well for your family, and you need your family relationships to be going well for your work. Do not try and split these things up. But you do want to figure out how to spend an appropriate amount of your time, effort, energy, attention is a better word, an appropriate amount of attention to your work and your family and your house. I do have a couple of pieces of advice for trying to figure out how to spend your attention well. Number one is to pay attention to the macro level of your programming process. The programming process being a creative process, it's a creative process, and every creative process I think shares these attributes. There's kind of four phases, four natural seasons of the way a project goes, and you need to be paying attention to how one season flows into another and what's appropriate to spend, what time is appropriate to spend in and out of work for each season, because it's going to change pretty drastically from season to season. The first season of any project is where you receive the project. You have some idea, you're not sure how it's going to go, there's some problem that you need to solve, and there's going to be a long process of understanding the problem, asking lots of questions, coming up, generating a bunch of solutions, seeing what solution fits well and what solution doesn't fit well, holding them all up to the problem. Depending on the problem, this can take hours and this can take months. And you need, especially if it's on the longer end of things, you need to be comfortable with the fact that you are kind of at the will of your emotions. Your job, in a lot of ways, is to get yourself to be curious about this problem and get your emotions driving and geared up to solve this problem, and then letting your emotions drive. And you might be sitting at supper sometime distracted. And I think it's best to just try and be honest with the people around you. Hey, I have this new problem at work. I don't really know how to solve it. So I might be a little distracted for the next couple weeks while I try to figure that out. Do your best to be in the moment, and allow yourself to be distracted in weird off hours, in the shower, driving around, on a walk, especially when you're isolated. These are going to be some of your best thinking time, and try to reserve your creative energy for those times when you can most leverage them, you can most make use of them. But it comes when it comes, and you might have to run and write down an idea really quickly in the middle of doing other things. By the way, and we're going to talk about this in a second, but you should be writing things down. That's going to help you a lot in trying to balance your life, balance the relationships in your life, right? The second phase of a project is the execution phase. And this is the phase is if you've done the first phase right, the design phase, the execution phase turns into mostly a rote exercise. At worst, it's an exercise of a bunch of small problems that can be solved on the order of hours, not days. Right? So you get into this phase, you have a lot more leeway with your time. You can be much more strict about being done at 5. Now, there's a bit of a trick to this. Once you're in this execution phase, do not pick up a new task at 4 o'clock. You will be frustrated when it takes longer than the 30 minutes that you thought it was going to take, and you're trying to get home, and you come home having not solved this problem, thinking that you were going to solve. So pay attention to the transition out of work and into home life. There is a transition thing that happens there that you can caretake a little, but you've entered this phase having front-loaded a lot of extra time. You allowed work to kind of flow into your personal life in an extreme way during the design phase. Now you can cut back a little bit. Now you can be done at 3:30, not pick up a new thing, not feel like you need to be constantly driving and driving and driving, because you have a plan, you're just executing the plan. And now it's time to, get it done, and you can do it as you have time. The third phase, and this is the phase that you bring up explicitly when deadlines are due and whatnot, right? This is the deployment phase. You're getting to the end of the thing. Not gonna lie, this is always the biggest pain. This is the worst phase, full stop. There always comes a phase towards the end of a project where you just start banging around, cramming things in, square pegs and round holes, and just getting it done, getting it out the door. It's never a fun process. It's always emotionally draining. Recognize that. Again, be vocal with your family and your spouse about this. Let them know, hey, I'm coming up to a deployment time. But you need to remember that this time period it should be really constrained. You should have done all the work really diligently up to this point to make sure that this is not a month-long drag-out thing. This is a week, a day, a week, maybe 2 weeks. But then you do it and you're done. And that's important to remember, that you're reaching for a finish line with this, and you need to get it to the point where you can fully put it down. Once you put it down, there is a fourth again, not often talked about phase of any creative endeavor, but including programming. The fourth phase is this dormancy. You get done with this kind of rush of you went through this design and you did all the work to get it out the door, and you birthed this thing into the world, and now you need space. You need to recuperate. And you don't have to ask your boss for this. This is not a thing. This is not a request. This is the way life is. And I think your boss more or less expects you to manage your emotions and yourself such that you're going to get things done in the future as well as today. So if you have a good relationship with your boss, you can discuss this with them. Hey, I'm going to need a week or two to decompress after this. That's excellent. If you don't feel like you have that relationship with your boss, just don't ask. All right? Do whatever minimal amount of work it is. Show up to meetings, kind of half pay attention, prep for what's going to happen a week, 2 weeks from now after you've recuperated, but give yourself time. Your recuperation period is going to depend a little on how long this project dragged out. Was it a 6-month, slog to get through the design and the execution? Sometimes it's like that. You're going to need 2, 3, 4 weeks of dormancy to recover, right? If it was a day or a week, okay, maybe an afternoon to recover, or a morning, or a couple days. It flexes. It depends a little bit on your general mood too. It doesn't have to depend on the immediately preceding project, but the point is you need to be planning on having this kind of extreme slack at the end of things where you can spend a ton of time on your relationships as you choose. Now, this isn't the best time for you to be investing in things, right? You've kind of drained yourself in a lot of ways, but you can be there, right? And you can be trying to cultivate your relationships a lot more, spending extra time on that as opposed to work, right? Because you allowed work to dominate for so long, and now we're going to allow it to slack. So this is how I think of it. It's a seasonal thing. Everything comes in seasons. You try to maintain communication with everybody all the way through to the best of your abilities. But the thing that's the most concrete piece of advice that I can give you is to start writing things down. I said it earlier, but when you're in the design phase of something, you should be writing down, this is the problem I'm trying to solve. These are all the complications that are associated with it. This is one solution and why I don't like it, or why I do like it. But these are the parts I do like. These are the parts I don't like. Here's another solution. It's a play on the first one, but with this twist. Here's what I like about it. Here's one caveat and one downside. Here's the next solution, completely different, right? But write down all of the solutions that you can generate to solve this particular problem. You know what you can do at the end of the day is leave. Right? You can come the next day, read through your document, try and regenerate ideas, and you have a place when you're at supper and this idea, aha, eureka, comes. You can write it down in this document you're keeping, keep a little note, write a little note, run back, be present for your family. I cannot explain to you how much of a massive emotional lift this will be if you do this in the design phase. In the design phase, as a separate phase from writing down code, make all your plans to solve the problem. Write down what your plans are and what your discarded solutions are. And then when you get into the execution phase, all this mental context that you're used to carrying around is on paper. Your emotional state is going to be 10 times lighter, guaranteed. You're just going to be way more relaxed, and you're going to be solving local code problems, right? This block needs to work like this block needs to work like that. These are much easier problems to solve in an hour or two. And if you do the thing, let's say you pick up a card at 3, you think it's going to take an hour, and it takes 2.5 hours. So you get to 5 and you're almost done. You want to be done with it. You're trying to debug this stupid thing for the last time, but it's time to go. Just write down, here's where I was, here's what I was doing. When you come back, you should be doing X, right? Write it down. That way when you come back, you'll know right where you left off. You'll feel good that you're going to not drop anything, and you're going to move on. You will be able to go to supper relaxed and attentive to your family, right? Writing things down is one of the most critical skills that you can have, along with discarding this idea that everything needs to be kind of imbalanced or compartmentalized. No, you're a whole person, and you need to figure out how to be a whole person in every context that you're in. Thanks for asking your question, Professional Pair 99. Best of luck. But enough about what I think. What do you think? Let Professional Pair 99 know in the comments what they should be doing. Lets me know where I'm right and where I'm wrong. And if you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. It helps get the word out. Thank you.